Hello and welcome back to Watchworthy. It's your boy, Brother Ash.
And I'm Miss Chris D.
And I know it's been a minute since y'all seen us. We had a lot going on with this past month. We made a big move into a new spot. We put out a couple audio episodes, but this is the first time that we've been back in video form.
Yes.
So welcome to the new home of Watchworthy.
The basement.
Yeah, we in the basement with it. So today's episode, we're going to be covering Simone Biles Rising. This is a 2024 Netflix documentary. So of course it was not just one documentary, it was a docuseries, but this time it was only two series.
Only 2 episodes so far. I think they're coming out with a third one.
Yeah, they did lead to that at the end of this, but obviously we chose this because one, Simone Biles, you could talk about Simone Biles any time of the year or any year, but this year in particular, we're going to be having the 2024 Olympics.
Yes,
so,
Paris.
Yeah, even though she's kind of getting up there, Simone Biles is making her appearance this year in the Olympics. So we figured we cover this documentary because it actually will be starting this week. We're recording this on
it'll be coming out in a couple days.
Yeah, in a couple days. So by the time y'all see this, it'll be almost time.
Although I did say on our Instagram I'm not feeling very patriotic this year, but I'm
never feeling patriotic.
I'm rooting for Simone.
I just love the nature of competition at the Olympics bring, and I love to see athletes compete at the world level.
Yeah.
Y'all know I love the sports. We both love true crime, but I feel like I definitely have the, a lot more interest in sports than Miss Chris D sometimes. But you like, the Olympics and stuff,
yes.
right? I mean, everybody does. But, this is just fun to me. I really like to see this. So we have a question for you guys, a poll question for those of y'all that's on Spotify. What makes Simone Biles a GOAT?
For me, it's definitely the 37 world and Olympic titles.
In every sport, when you really want to boil down who the best is, that jewelry matters. So, yeah, that's a good point.
And also mental health advocacy. There's just so many reasons to love her. She genuinely seems like a fun, nice person that you would want to be friends with.
And to some people, her advocacy with mental health makes her less of a GOAT. We'll dive into that.
Yeah. This documentary definitely talked a lot, but I think it's good to start with a little bit of background on Simone Biles. So if you do not know her background, Simone Biles' mother actually had a substance abuse problem, and she ended up in foster care at a young age with her siblings. And so we actually found out in the documentary that she was adopted by her maternal grandparents, her grandfather Ron and his second wife Nellie. So these are people, Nellie's not even blood, but she literally is like Simone's mom at this point.
Yeah.
Because like I said, they were very young. And so just to even get that history of her background and to learn that even the world champion on Vogue magazine and all these things, even she had a tough upbringing and it wasn't all peaches and cream. So it was good to just, get a peek behind the curtain and see her relationship with her parents. And her sister was in the documentary as well. And just seeing them be regular sisters, So I just wanted to talk about that because I feel like it's important to the sport of gymnastics. Like, that is not a cheap sport.
No.
An easy sport for your kids to be in.
Hell
especially
no.
when y'all came from nothing. I just keep thinking like, wow, imagine if her grandparents hadn't adopted her. Like, where would she be? And she probably wouldn't be the Simone Biles that we know today. So I'm glad that somebody, loved her enough and cared about her enough to put her into a awesome sport where she could really shine. And like I said, it was not cheap to keep up with all these camps and everything.
And not just cheap. It's one thing. I was just talking about this earlier this week. It's one thing to pay for it, but the better you get at these sports at the child level, the more often that these, practices are, the longer the seasons become. Like, there's some families who have kids who play soccer all year.
Year-round sports.
Because they travel, and gymnastics is one of those sports where it's kind of like you're always training, you're always competing. So that was very demanding for them to take her in and to, be able to foster her growth in gymnastics.
Absolutely. But I do want to put a red flag because we hear in the documentary how basically giving up your childhood, as you said, really affects these girls in gymnastics. Simone, her teammates, and the like. Anybody who plays at this level, you are basically giving up social time with your friends to be in the gym all the time. Luckily, the other girls who are in the gym become your friends, but there's no room for dating. There's no room for any of that stuff because you are training to be at that world level. Like you said, it's really just Olympics for gymnasts. Like, you go to Worlds, you go to the trials and everything, but you really want to get to the Olympics, and
That's
you
the
only
goal,
have a short window to do it because gymnasts start around like 11, 12, and you can only really you max out at like 18. So it's crazy that someone like Simone Biles has gone on for, quote, so long of a career, but she's really only 27. And so, some of these camps we saw in the documentary, red flag for those camps, they're very militant. Some of the best gymnastics coaches are Russian, German.
Red flag on that. Because I'm just like, are there no great not indigenous, like
indigenous Americans,
but like Americans, like, I feel like all the coaches during this documentary just had these strong accents from like Russia, or it might have been, I think one guy might have been French or something.
Well, we learned that the gymnast, the style of gymnastics that is so popular today, that did like originate like from overseas, and so they were the best of the best to bring it over to America and teach us. But you're right, it would be great to see some American coaches with American girls, but not in this sport.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's why, but. It just threw me off. I'm like, this is the Olympics, and like we're getting coached by Russians.
Yeah, but I guess that goes to how America's a melting pot. They could be American citizens, but just immigrants or something. But the point is, these camps, they brought over that militant background from Europe, and they really traumatized these girls from a young age, teaching them to be perfect and every hair must be in place and be silent during these camps, and you don't get a say, and you have to play through your injuries and perform through your pain. That to me, I would have been like, nah, I'm out. But these girls, they're strong and they're resilient. And they talked about how in the documentary, they said like it kind of warped their idea of what is normal, quote unquote, because you think, oh, I could just flip through a broken ankle. Like, I be talking to you about that in football. I'm like, how do these people go on?
Sports be so demanding because you don't want to, the higher you get, the more money is involved. So if you got a sprained ankle in a professional sport, you expected to play through that. I'm sorry.
I can't believe that.
You're just and I can't think of one sport where you wouldn't be expected to play through that.
I mean, how are you supposed to get better and heal if you're playing through it?
If the
you're
ligament,
just shooting up what you call it on the sideline?
If the ligament is not torn, if the bone isn't broken, we're going to shoot you up with something and your ass is going back out there. We talking millions of dollars on the line, baby. We talking America. This is America.
Yeah. So Simone Biles said in the documentary, you don't think about it until after the fact. Like, wow, that was borderline abuse. But you want to become a world champion, so you do what it takes, end quote.
That's sports.
Yeah. I just can't believe it. I can't wrap my mind around it because these girls are so young. You should be out at the mall hanging out with your friends, but this is what you dedicated your life to. Maybe I never loved anything that much. I don't know. But I've never like physically put myself through pain for my art and what I love. So that, to each their own. But that's exactly how Simone got to that GOAT status. For those of you who don't know, GOAT stands for greatest of all time. And we can definitively say that because she has made history with some of her accolades. A sportscaster in the documentary actually said, it's hard to commentate because I run out of words with Simone. When they're giving a play-by-play of the Olympics, they're just like, wow, look at her go. Like, they don't even know what to say.
Yeah, I didn't really get it until you start to compare, like, what she does against other gymnasts.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you can see it. Like, I'm not a gymnast guy, though, or gymnastics guy, so I don't know what the fuck.
I've always admired the sport of gymnastics, tumbling, cheer. I wished I could do a back handspring, and so that's why I'm so enamored. I feel like black girls, the only thing I watch on the Olympics is track and gymnastics. And now swimming, because we got some black girls swimming, too, so.
You know what I'm watching during the Olympics?
The basketball, the track?
Basketball, the 100, the 200, and the 400. And the relays of those different races.
And so it's just crazy that somebody, just so unassuming. I don't want to say that because like the biggest talent can come in the smallest packages. But yeah, Simone is like 4'11" and just a muscular built body. And she is strong. When I was looking at this documentary, I was like, I want that back. Like, I need to unbig my back. I need the Simone arms. Like, she is just strong. And so that is how she has won herself 37 world and Olympic titles. And it's hilarious on the documentary. She's like, hey, Siri, how many, whatever do I have? And she's like, actually, this is wrong. Like, they need to update it. She has so many, like, they can't even keep up. And so sometimes I think about, like, dang, when is it going to be enough? But, like, for her, she just wants to keep going. Like, this is going to be her third Olympics now in 2024. So it's really incredible. And they also talked about how, like you said, other gymnasts cannot do what Simone does. Like, she's unstoppable. They showed in the documentary she was specifically trying to get a skill called like the Urincho pike or something it was called. It was a crazy triple pike that nobody ever does. Like, you can almost die from it. And Simone was like, nah, I want to do that. And they said in gymnastics, if you do win a challenge like that, then it's then named after you. So now the Urincho pike is now the Simone Biles too. She has 5 of those named after her. They said it's a quote challenge to get it, but she has 5 moves named after her. That's how good she is. And she's only 27, y'all. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's pretty old for a gymnast though, apparently.
Well, I mean, put a red flag for me because why can't you keep going until your body says stop, you know?
Well, it usually says stop around then for gymnasts. Like, it's a lot of demand on the body. Like those flips, and that's a lot of shock for your joints to be absorbing.
Yeah.
That's why gymnasts are so small. Like, you don't see a lot of guys that's gymnasts that's like really super big guys. They're super cut. They're in great shape. But, you know, that's kind of a sport where you want to be able to control and contort your body in the middle of the air. And it's kind of proven that people with smaller frames can have a better chance of doing it. So, yeah.
Well, it just makes me think of, you know, when Tom Brady was going for 40 seasons or whatever. I was like, oh my God, give it a rest.
When you're the GOAT though, like, you know, we call Simone Biles and Tom Brady and Michael Jordan, like Serena Williams, you defy the status quo.
Yeah, exactly.
So for Simone being 27 at the Olympics is crazy, apparently, in gymnastics.
She's like the oldest on the team, yeah. Because her teammates are like 16.
She's out there doing shit that none of them spring chickens could do.
Yeah.
So that just shows you like how skilled she is.
Absolutely. And so with all that does come the pressure, and Black women weren't really represented in gymnastics on this kind of Olympic platform until the 80s or 90s, they said. Even then, it was like they were able to succeed, but they were in the shadow of white women. So red flag for me, because 1980s was only like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, they did not see a Black face really at the Olympics until the 90s, because they said like the lady in the 80s technically broke her ankle and she didn't get to be on the team or whatever. So we're talking like 30 years ago, y'all. This is still a sport that needs to be way more integrated. I feel like this year's team is even more Black than before, because, you know, only like 5 girls make the U.S. gymnastics Olympic team, and like they only got 1 white girl this year. So I'm happy to see the representation. And they talked about Gabby Douglas. We cannot talk about women's gymnastics without talking about Gabby Douglas. In 2012, Gabby Douglas was the first Black woman to win gold in the all-around individual ever. Like, think about how the Olympics have been going on for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And like, we still only have 1 woman who was able to do that in 2012. And so those are the kind of people that Simone was growing up with. If Simone was probably in middle school when Gabby was doing her thing. So it was like each one just keeps getting, every year we just keep getting more Black girls. And so it's really great representation, but it's still slow. And so we know, you know, they brought up Gabby Douglas, and she won this amazing historical groundbreaking, but all they could talk about was her hair.
Red flag.
Red flag. Remember that, y'all?
I'm so disappointed in my people, because how y'all be acting over people's hair. Like,
it is mostly Black people who are talking about Gabby.
White people be too afraid to talk about our hair.
Now, I'm not gonna lie. I have been one of those people like, damn, they can't get Simone some edge control.
We don't care. We don't care.
Listen, hear me out.
When LeBron's out there dunking on niggas,
people talked about his hairline. People talked about his hairline his whole career.
But like,
you're on TV, and Kevin Durant could at least get a shape up.
He could. Like, he could buy everybody in DC a shape up if he wanted to, because he's that good at what he does. Why we care about Kevin Durant's hair? Because,
okay, hear me out.
Or Simone Biles' edges.
Hear me out. Because they talked about in the documentary how important appearance has been in gymnastics. From the leotard to the makeup to the hair. Back in the day, the girls couldn't even braid their hair how they do now. They used to have a certain scrunchie, a certain look. And so I just assumed that if you're on the Olympic stage, I just thought that they had like costume designers and makeup artists for real. And so I just assumed that they had somebody doing their hair. Simone told us in this documentary they still be doing their own hair on the Olympic platform.
I just think it's silly that somebody could be this dominant in their sport that has nothing to do with the presentation of your hair, and we talking about their hair.
I I know how ridiculous it is,
Did you see how many times she flipped in the middle of the fucking... I don't care about her edges.
Yeah, I don't think any edge control could hold down.
That's what I'm saying. Like, she's
Biles
physically...
number 2.
She's physically moving her body to the point when you see her...
She's generating wind.
She's generating sweat. She's moving around. Like, she's trying to focus on, like, not landing on her fucking neck. And we sitting here talking about her edges.
Babe, I understand. I agree with you. It's crazy. We shouldn't tear a black woman down. We should not.
I
was just surprised because I always was like, dang, they hair be looking a mess. But I mean, that's part of the sport.
I've seen it and thought it before. Like, oh, but like, I'm an athlete.
So you understand.
So I understand. Yeah. Like, when you're... Well, I'm not an athlete. Like, let me not, like, go there. But, like, I'm saying, like, when you was playing a sport, you took your helmet off, your shit looked crazy. Like, when you was, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes. It's not physical like football or basketball or like hockey, but like, it's just, I just don't get it. Like, to me, I'm just like, damn, like, don't y'all realize y'all, no offense, babe, but I'm like, don't y'all realize y'all sound like haters right now talking about her edges while she just became one of the best athletes ever? Like, not just gymnasts, like best athletes ever. And
you're absolutely right.
I don't get it.
And I think that just goes back to race. I think that they don't be talking about the white girls like that when they have their hair in a messy bun. And so it's definitely a lot of pressure from the media to be the token black girl in gymnastics, especially when you are the GOAT. Like, you have to put your best foot forward. And so even Simone was like, I can't believe they talked about Gabby like that and they still talk about me like that. So I do hope that we get better. By 2024, y'all better not say nothing about her hair.
She literally laughs about it. So I want y'all to know, like, y'all funny and shit, but like... Yeah. Yeah,
they had her read some tweets on the documentary and she was just laughing at it.
Maybe one day people will get awarded for being the greatest of all time at tweeting.
Yeah.
You're the GOAT at cracking jokes about people you've never met.
Right. So, you know, this all is a lot, though, on one young woman, you know, a young black woman at that. And so Simone said that she usually just tries to push all these things down, which we have talked about mental health before. We know that that is not good to just be pushing your feelings down. She says, you know, I'll push it down and try to deal with it later. But that didn't really work when it came around 2016 and the Me Too movement opened up doors and people started to talk about Team USA's doctor at the time, Dr. Nasser. And Simone did come out as one of his victims of sexual assault. Red flag for that nigga. Because, again, a doctor, young girls trusted you. And Team USA looked the other way, or parents who knew, you know, closed a blind eye, whatever you want to say. However you want to put it, it was wrong. And this was trauma. This was sexual abuse and this was trauma. And this girl had to put that to the side and still go to the Olympics. So, of course, she had a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
So Simone felt the pressure, especially because she started to become like the face of the 2020 Olympics. You know, by then it was like, all eyes on Simone. What is she going to do this year? She is expected to win at this point, you know? And so she said in the documentary, the media paints a picture of me, but I'm on the other end of that. I have to live it. I'm the painter. And I've talked about this before, like, celebrities are still humans. At the end of the day, I don't care how many gold medals you have, she still puts her pants on the same way. She still loves spending time with her boyfriend and dog. And I just feel like we put way too much pressure on her in the name of our country.
I don't buy into none of that shit. I'm solely in it to see who I want to see who the best gymnast is in the world. That's the only thing I care about.
But she's wearing the American flag, and she feels like if I don't do this, I'm gonna let all of America down.
It's a leotard. So, yeah, look, I'm sorry.
To her,
y'all.
It's not just a leotard; it's her career.
No, I get that, but I'm like, at the end of the day, like, we got to stop putting so much pressure. Like, oh, it's for America. Like, yeah, but like, at the end of the day, if she loses, do we die as Americans? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's just a game, right?
Yeah.
So, like, she should be the most invested because it's her body she's putting on the line. It's just crazy to me how invested, like, we become over these sports and stuff. Like, you know me, I'm a hardcore.
No, I was going to bring up football.
I'm a Giants fan.
I was going to bring up football.
So, you know, I watch football very passionately. So, like, I get into it. But, like, at the end of the day, like, I'm not hate tweeting the Giants because we let go of Saquon. Like, I crack my jokes on social media, but get a life, people.
Yeah, but I'm even thinking about the athletes in football who you're concussed and you're still ready. Put me in, coach. No, put yourself first. That's how I feel. And then if they not playing this week, what's he? Oh, he's crying over a broken rib. Yes.
Yeah, The guy on the couch drinking the beer.
My bet's rooting on this guy, and he's sitting out with a sprained ankle.
He would go out there with a broken rib because he's a fucking idiot. So in 2020, the Olympics looked differently because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
With COVID shutting the world down, the Olympics didn't have, the crowds filled with, people watching the Olympics from all over, family members, and that's something that meant a lot to Simone Biles.
So tough, yeah.
So she thought that the 2020 Olympics was going to be the peak of her career, and she would be done after that.
Right, because she did 2016 and then 2020. 2 Olympics is pretty good for her age. So she was like, I'm out after this.
So she was at I guess she was around 23, 22 at the time, in her early 20s. So that would have been a more appropriate time for gymnasts to kind of hang it up, especially achieving everything that she's achieved.
Yeah.
So something strange kind of happened though. She got a case of something called the twisties.
Red flag.
I guess that's a red flag.
I put a red flag just because I hate that you ever get to this point. For me as an artist, it's like creative block. For an athlete, it's like a mental block.
Yeah, it's just a part of it though. It happens to everybody. I didn't know that though. Apparently the twisties, yeah, it's a writing block for rappers. It's a mental block for Klay Thompson when he's not the second Splash Brother anymore. You know what I'm saying? He could shoot a 3, but for whatever reason, it's just not landing like it used to land. And that's quite literally what the twisties is. Yeah. It's basically when I don't know if it's your equilibrium. It's just when you're in the air and you're spinning around, you don't have the same sense of awareness.
You clock out.
And you kind of just you're either thinking about it too much or something's just not connecting, which becomes very dangerous for gymnasts.
Yeah.
If I'm shooting a 3, if I'm off, it's just going to miss. If you're flipping in the air and you're off, you might land wrong and be paralyzed.
Yeah.
So
I didn't realize the mental block could really kill you. So that's why I was like, oh, that's bad.
She actually said it felt like she was in jail between her brain and her body, and she felt so ashamed. So during this time, she was training, and she actually was training with other gymnasts that weren't even at that level, just at really, big gyms. So they got to see her going through this, which I'm sure was interesting for them.
Yeah.
So she had a very bad vault in warm-ups, and she knew it was over. So
yeah, it's really crazy when you're in tune with your own body and you just know oh, this is gonna be a bad day.
And mind you, this is somebody that has competed at the highest level. You don't compete at that level without a love for this, without the love of competing. So if she knows it's over, you got to understand that's years of wisdom in her craft, knowing when to kind of call it. So she said that she really wanted to run out of the stadium if she could have. That's how embarrassed she was.
That's so sad. Red flag, because I don't know. I just feel like other people get to be like, oh, LeBron's sitting out this game and we don't know why. And, it could be anything. For her, it's she was nervous to let people know and let them down. She was like, I can't do this today.
Yeah, so she ended up being grateful for that. She said, thank God for that bad vault. Because that's what got her into therapy. That's what got her to seek some help outside of just doing it over and over again in practice and risking your safety. So she actually went out and got help. But during all of this, of course, you had people all over sports networks and broadcasters calling her out, saying that she was soft.
Red flag.
Retired athletes, fans, people basically saying this is what being an athlete is. When you're faced with a hard time, you go out and you fight it and you persevere through it.
That's what I'm talking about. At what cost? Y'all want this girl to put her life on the line just to win a gold medal?
I understand the principle, but I don't understand how severe people think this is. You got to put yourself in other people's shoes. And it's a reason why she decided to sit out of the Olympics. People coming oh, you left your team high and dry during the Olympics. Okay, cool. But at the same time, it would have been worse if the best teammate goes out there and can't land, none of her routines. You kind of hurting your team at that point.
Yeah. Imagine if we saw her break her neck on live TV. I would not want to see that.
So, long story short, it's kind of people were, putting her on a pedestal. And it's just kind of just imagine when you're going through stuff and you're trying to figure things out. You're talking to your therapist, you're talking to your family, your boyfriend, your husband, your girlfriend, whatever. and people are constantly calling you out in the media. So she's going through this.
Yeah.
So now she has become like a survivor of mental health and an advocate for